Hey everyone, I'm gonna show you guys how I made some things. So let's get to it. Alright, so I'm gonna show you how a little process into how I do my sound design. Sometimes when I design stuff, I take samples. Like I went on a site called freesounds.org and I took this sitar sample over here. Just a sitar sample in C. Then what I did was I created this melody in C sharp, I think C sharp minor or something, right? I know, my bad, like D sharp minor or something. I'm not really so sure, I'm not good with scales, but I'll give you a quick playthrough of it. And it repeats and repeats. So what I did to the sample was, first I added some wave shaper to give the sample a bit of life, because it was let's say when you get pre-recorded guitar samples and you want to sample an individual note, there tends to be a lack of humanity in it, or like, humane feel to it, because these samples have been pre-recorded, and you're basically, what you're doing is you're adjusting the velocity of these samples, which creates a illusion of different, I guess, tones that's being produced. So this illusion can be further enhanced through saturation, because it adds a brightness and more of a punch. I specifically use this fuzzy saturator because it sort of distorts the sound a bit and it brings out more harmonies. After that, I used some vintage reverb over here, past era. I actually want to change this to present, to be honest, but I didn't want to go for a vintagey sound, but yeah, I added some delay over here. Then yeah, my bad. This is the reverb. I added a present feel. I removed some of the lows, increased some of the highs a bit, reduced some of the bass frequencies that was going on. I left pretty much the delay the same because I liked that effect, and I took another. I was going to take another EQ, which I'm going to show you. This is how I pretty much get rid of frequencies that are bad. This is actually an example I was planning. It's in that area, frequencies, very high resonant frequencies. Because resonant frequencies, resonance is good in general, but when there's too much of it, it can leave your ears ringing, and it's like such a pain in the ass to deal with. So I always make sure I, EQ out the resonance. Specifically, I do it. Sometimes I automate these various parameters to create a notch, basically a giant notch filter going up and down, but I feel like this sound doesn't need that. I usually do it for more of my future funk FM synthesis kind of stuff. Then what I did here was, yeah, I think I actually didn't EQ out some of this stuff, some of the lows and all that stuff, which I'll do right now. I'll do that right now, actually. Because there's definitely no need for all that. This is definitely a very mid-range, upper mid sound. You wouldn't block this as a bass because not enough low frequencies, not enough of a punch, no dynamics for a bass, so thus removing all the low frequencies over here. Notice I don't really use a lot of external plugins for my work. I mostly just use the stock plugins because, they get the job done, I'm not making Grammy nominated shit out here, I'm not even really that professional in it. It's just all self-taught. I studied various YouTube tutorials, and this is how I make my stuff, Well, yeah, that's an example of sampling, of how I sample. You could do other stuff to it. For example, if you add like I don't know, you can. My favorite tool to use when sampling is honestly reverb, because you can do so much with reverb. All right, let me just show you an example. Let's get rid of this delay. All right, where's the delay? or the wave shaper too. Delay. Decay, you bring it all the way down. No pre-delay, fuck that. Alright. Bring the attack down to. You're essentially created, see, you created basically a gated reverb going on over here. It's essentially what you've made, a gated reverb. Let me bring back the presets still to their original values so I can, you can do a lot of cool stuff with reverb. Like if you do a gated reverb and you add some distortion, it creates great frequencies. I actually think the attack was a bit too much over here. And back to like, what was it, 9-ish? Actually, I think I changed the thing of the sound. But it sounds better like this in my opinion. Another thing that I like using is delay modulation. What's going on is that you're essentially combining the duties of a flanger and essentially a phaser, because what's going on is when you're delaying a sound, let's see, let me show you. Basically, when you're delaying a sound, what's going on is these individual tropes and individual tropes, they move, they get displaced by mere milliseconds. So what's going on is when you constantly do this displacement, you're creating essentially a flanger, and that's essentially what a flanger is supposed to do. It basically displaces audio forms and puts them in slightly different areas. That's what's happening when you modulate the delay, as well as it gives a flanger effect too. I'd say it gives more of a flanger effect if you do it in very small increments, like if you have a dub delay and you do just very tiny modulations, that gives more of a flanger effect. But yeah, I just thought I'd show you guys. This is basically what I pretty much do with sampling. Not what I pretty much do. I usually experiment more, but this is just let's say an example of how I use sampling in my music. I'm working on a new album called American Agony, and it's basically a conceptual album about my experience in living in America. Don't worry, it's not like some emo shit or some fucking, overly saturated or overly melodramatic stuff. It's just the landscape of what I grew up in. It's just my experience of being a, let's say, minority in this country. That will take some time. I did release a song though from it, 2 songs rather. One of them is called Smile, which is dedicated to, I guess, the happier times of my life, which I spent in this country, and my life in general, because during kindergarten, I'd say elementary school to kindergarten, were some of my happiest memories of life in general, because people accepted me for who I was and all that stuff. And when I moved to my native land, I got bullied relentlessly, and it was pretty tough on me, honestly. So I have forever gratitude towards this country, and that's the significance towards that song. Another song that I have released is called Father's Sacrifice, which is dedicated to my dad, who came to this country. Actually, he was quite successful in my home country, but he came here because of me, essentially, because of my ADHD. I have ADHD, so due to my ADHD needs, he came here and gave me treatment. In the end, he sacrificed all of his status, and he got a rather low-ranking job in this society's standards. So it's dedicated to all the stuff he's done for me. And I'll link those 2 songs in the description. Thanks for tuning in. To all of you who witnessed my edgier sides in the past 2 years, I want to say I'm sorry for that. This is not some generic YouTube apology or some shit. It's just that I have matured as a person, and I'm I'm making an effort to better myself, and yeah, that's pretty much an update with my life. And see you guys in the next one. Thanks for always subscribing to my YouTube and watching my stuff. It means a ton.